We're looking at 8 wide receivers in the early rounds that people either love or they hate. And I'm going to let you know which side of the fence I fall on. Are these guys you have to draft or you have to avoid? Hey, before we get into these wide receivers, got to remind you once again, flockfantasy.com/endgame is the place to be this fantasy football season. Come play redraft fantasy football with and against Pierre and I. Chance to win cash prizes, get some endgame swag. Also, we'll break down your team individually in a podcast for you. Not to mention, we got our draft guide and draft rankings, in-season rankings, bonus articles, bonus videos, everything you need to crush it this year in fantasy football. Flockfantasy.com/endgame, 30% off if you sign up today. All right, let's start with the first wide receiver. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. Some people think it's crazy that this guy is being drafted in the first round. Other people think he should be even higher than this. So where do I fall? Well, let's find out. First of all, Garrett Wilson is an elite wide receiver. When you look at him as a rookie, what he did with Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White was absolutely awesome. 1,100 yards, had the catches, didn't have the touchdowns, but come on, he's on the Jets. What do you expect? That offense was terrible last year. Getting a very nice quarterback upgrade with Aaron Rodgers this year. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is elite anymore. Those days are past him, but he's still a good quarterback, and we know he's going to pepper Garrett Wilson with targets. Who else do they have to throw to here? I mean, all the old Green Bay cast-offs, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, they don't even have Elijah Moore anymore. They shipped him off. I mean, they still got Corey Davis. They shipped off Denzel Mims. There is nobody here to compete with targets for Garrett Wilson. He's going to have a massive target share. The offense will at least be better with Aaron Rodgers. They have a good defense. That good young secondary will give the offense lots of chances, put him in good positions, put him in good game script. I think Garrett Wilson has a massive year 2 breakout for me. Even in the first round, he's a must draft. All right, now we got one of the best fantasy wide receivers of this kind of recent generation here, and that is Davante Adams. Just keeps chugging along with Aaron Rodgers. Without Aaron Rodgers, does not matter. This guy is a fantasy stud every year. Still going kind of as a borderline first rounder, early second rounder. Is it worth it? Because we know it's not Derek Carr, it's not Aaron Rodgers, it's probably Jimmy Garoppolo. Is that good enough for him? I'm not sure. I do have some concerns here for Davante Adams. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo being number one. Derek Carr will chuck it deep. Derek Carr will throw it down the field and say, hey, Davante Adams, make a play, which Davante Adams can do. And Davante Adams was still very, very good last year. I mean, I'm not knocking Davante Adams. Davante Adams still a great wide receiver. But Carr will give him those, Hail Mary, throw it up for grabs type of balls. I don't think we're going to see that from Jimmy G. Also, they did bring in Jacoby Myers, and whatever you think about Jacoby Myers, he's a good wide receiver. He's probably better than any other wide receiver they had last year. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, Matt Collins, there was nobody else to throw to here. So I do see Davante Adams' target share dropping. That, combined with Jimmy G's lack of deep ball, I think we see a good Davante Adams this year, just not an elite one anymore. He's 31. I mean, he was still good last year, like I said, but could see the start of the decline this year. So for me, I think this is just a little too high for Davante Adams. If I can get him more like mid-second, late second, I'll take him. But man, right at the end of the first, early second, just too high for my liking. I'm going to make him a must avoid. Let's go to another second-year wide receiver that people can't believe is being drafted this high, and that is Chris Olave. I hear it so much, like, why is Chris Olave being drafted so high? Well, I'll tell you why. Just like Garrett Wilson, he was elite as a rookie last year. He had almost the same numbers as Garrett Wilson, only 9 less catches, only 60 less yards, the same number of touchdowns, and he played 2 less games, and he also had terrible quarterback play. I mean, Andy Dalton at the end, he even had to play games with Taysom Hill down the stretch there. Also was very good with bad quarterback play. Now he gets Derek Carr over as a quarterback, and we've seen it. Derek Carr can support an elite fantasy option. We saw it back in the day with Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. We saw it with Davante Adams last year. We saw it with Darren Waller. I know Darren Waller wasn't a wide receiver, but he basically was the Raiders wide receiver one that year that he had that incredible campaign a few years ago. Derek Carr will absolutely just force feed his best wide receiver. And Chris Olave is by far the best wide receiver on this offense. Don't talk to me about Michael Thomas. He's done. I like Rashid Shaheed, but he's like a complimentary piece, number 2 guy. Chris Olave will get peppered with targets from Derek Carr. I will happily take him here. Usually the middle of the second round, no problem at all. Chris Olave is a must draft for me. Next up, we got Calvin Ridley, another guy. People are either like, he's going to smash this year in Jacksonville, or they're like, you're crazy. He hasn't played in a year and a half. So where do I fall? Let's find out. So I got to start. Love the landing spot for him in Jacksonville. It's great. This is an emerging offense, an emerging passing game. We saw Trevor Lawrence last year with Doug Peterson, showed why he was the number one pick. He's a generational talent. He should take even another step here in year 2, get even better. This offense should get even better. Doug Peterson knows offense. He knows passing games. That's a huge plus. Calvin Ridley, when we saw him last, was still an elite player, an elite route runner, a great route runner. And all the talks in camp so far has been about his route running, how good he is as a route runner. Of course, that is against air. What is the risk here? Well, he didn't play football in a year and a half. You got to worry about, number one, what's it going to be like when he's out there against real competition at real game speed? Is there going to be some rust? You also got to worry about acclimation injury, because you could train hard, you could practice hard, but it's not the same as an NFL game. When we see these guys who haven't played in a long time, a lot of times they come back and within a game or two, they've got a hamstring strain, a calf strain, something like that, because their body isn't acclimated to what they're putting it through. But I think Calvin Ridley landed in a great spot in Jacksonville. It's a great offense. He has a great quarterback. I'm willing to buy the talent of Calvin Ridley combined with the talent of Trevor Lawrence. So for me, he's a must draft. Next up, let's go with Jerry Jeudy. This is a guy everybody keeps waiting for the breakout, the Jerry Jeudy hype. It's been 3 years. We haven't seen it yet. Will we see it in year 4? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think Jerry Jeudy is as good as a lot of people think he is. Jerry Jeudy's a fine wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver, but he's gotten this reputation of being this elite route runner, and he has not been an elite route runner 1 year in his NFL career. He runs some routes well, and he's terrible at other routes. That is not an elite route runner, but he does some good things, and in this offense, he probably will be the number 1 wide receiver. I don't think he should be a number 1 wide receiver, but he's going to have to be in this offense. Now, if you're buying Jerry Jeudy, you're basically buying that Sean Payton can resalvage Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson was awful last year. So you got to hope Russell Wilson is better and Sean Payton can get the most out of him. But I think Jerry Jeudy is a good enough player that he should be fine in fantasy this year. I can't call him a must draft. Like, I don't think Jerry Jeudy is going to smash or anything like that, but I don't think he's going to bust either. So I guess for Jerry Jeudy, I'm going to say push. He's okay in fantasy this year. All right, next up we have Christian Watson, who started his NFL career by dropping one of the easiest touchdowns he'll ever have. And then he smashed in the middle part of the season, and then he got hurt and missed the end of the season. So which Christian Watson are we going to get this year? Well, we know what this guy can do. We know his potential. He's just oozing with upside. This is a guy, just get him the ball and let him run past everybody for a huge touchdown. But also, he's not a polished wide receiver. He's not some elite guy who can run the full route tree, get separation up and down the route tree, beat every kind of coverage there is. That's not really his game. He's going to beat you with his athleticism and his speed. And now he's got Jordan Love instead of Aaron Rodgers. But that might not be as bad as you think, because Aaron Rodgers was one of the worst deep ball passers in the entire NFL last year. And like I said, when I talked about Garrett Wilson, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is elite anymore. I don't think Jordan Love's going to be a big step down. I think my worries here for Christian Watson are more that he's got competition. Romeo Doubs entering year 2. They drafted Jaden Reed, who I like as a wide receiver. They drafted 2 pass-catching tight ends. They put some weapons around Jordan Love. So Christian Watson, even though I think he'll be the number 1 wide receiver technically, may not get a massive target share, but this guy has monstrous weekly upside. On any play, he can basically hit a huge home run and make his entire week. So for me, Christian Watson in this range, I got to do it. I got to take him. I got to chase that upside. It's just the way I play fantasy. He's a must draft for me. All right, one more second-year wide receiver, Drake London. This is another really polarizing guy. A lot of people look at this Atlanta offense. They look at Desmond Ridder. They think, no way can this offense support Drake London. I may disagree. Drake London's a great wide receiver. He was a polished prospect coming in, the number 1 wide receiver off the board last year. Showed as a rookie his talent. If you take out the Marcus Mariota nonsense, Marcus Mariota was legit probably the worst quarterback who started that many games last year. If you take that out of the mix, Drake London himself was very good. And in the games of Desmond Ridder last year, he was actually very good. He was good in PPR leagues. I think he can be even better in year 2. I think with Desmond Ridder, they're going to come closer to 30 pass attempts a game instead of 24, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough for Drake London to be at least a high-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. I love Drake London this year. I think he's going to have a big breakout, not to the level of Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, but he's going to have a nice second-year breakout, and next year, people won't be worried about him. I compared him kind of like the Devonta Smith last year. I think that could be Drake London this year. He could have a Devonta Smith type breakout in year 2. Definitely a must draft for me. And then finally, we got to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. He's still being drafted as a top 24 wide receiver, now in Tennessee, now 31 years old. What are we going to get from DeAndre Hopkins? Well, last year, he was still pretty good. When you look at him, just his wide receiver play, his route running, how he did against certain coverages, he was still very good wide receiver. He wasn't elite prime DeAndre Hopkins, but he was still very good. Also still one of the best contested catch guys. He's got great hands. That's not going to change. But his game is going to have to change. He's no longer a vertical threat. He's more one of those guys, intermediate, mid-range type of wide receivers with great hands. My worry here is, will he get the target share? Because that was what was doing it in Arizona. It wasn't like he was catching passes down the field, racking up yards after the catch. He was getting hammered with targets, 10 yards, 8 yards, 12 yards, just tons of PPR value, not a lot of touchdown upside. Now he goes to Tennessee where they're not going to throw as much as Arizona, that's for sure. And he's got Ryan Tannehill and not Kyler Murray. And look, I think Ryan Tannehill is, I don't know, I guess he's okay. That's probably the best endorsement I can give Ryan Tannehill, but this is going to be a low volume passing offense. They've got a terrible defense, which means, they're not going to be on the field a lot. I mean, maybe they'll be in negative game script and they'll have to throw quite a bit, but it's Ryan Tannehill. It's not Kyler Murray. It's not the same. Plus, when he was playing last year, Hollywood Brown was either out or returning from a foot injury. Zach Ertz was out. I mean, there was nobody else here. At least the Titans do have Treylon Burks. They do have Chig Okonkwo. So, and they're going to run through Derrick Henry. I'm a little nervous about DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think I can draft him as a wide receiver 2. If he falls and becomes like a wide receiver 3, sure, but as a wide receiver 2, I can't do it, so he's going to be a must avoid. So that's my feeling on some polarizing wide receivers, but if you want to see the running back edition, check it out right here.